thanks for taking some time and chatting to me today.
Hi, thank you for inviting me, man.
Oh, no worries.
How do I look? How does everything look? Yeah, because I know my internet connection is not one of the best, and I don't have equipment or anything, so I hope that works well for you. As
No,
long
this
as
works. This works great.
oh, perfect then.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, thanks for coming on. Do you want to be referred to as Keor or Victor? Like, which one would be best?
You know what? I'm in a big existential crisis regarding the name right now, so I think we're gonna go for Victor.
Victor.
This one, yeah.
Right. The project is Keor, but the name, the man behind it is Victor.
Well, look, the project was Keor until Petrica, and then for Tea Room, I felt it was more like a pseudonym.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I kind of got this out of my chest, I'm maybe thinking about another name for the music that I'm going to be doing next, or what I'm going to be referring myself to. I have no idea.
Right.
So yeah, Victor's going to do. It's been the name for 24 years. It's been tested and proved. So
right.
yeah,
Right.
I feel comfortable.
No, that's great, and it kind of comes to like my first question is like your musical journey, because you've got 3 albums now, and each one is very different in terms of like the expression and the style. So like, why do it? Like, why kind of express yourself in such a way? I know I'm asking the hard
Tough
questions
questions,
today.
by the way. Yeah. Well, getting right to the bone of it. I feel like I've been learning up to that point.
Mm-hmm.
Like my first album is literally me fumbling around with my first ever laptop on my first ever recording software with my first ever guitar.
Oh.
So yeah, man. I imagine if everybody was so keen on recording everything that they write and putting them online, you'd be surprised to hear the difference across the different stuff that they would put out. But people usually don't. So what you listen to on Hive Mind's actually my very first demos and everything.
Okay.
Some of the stuff I recorded, I was like 16 or 17 years
wow.
old at most. So I guess that would explain the difference from Hive Mind to Tea Room that I like. In between, I've done 3 years studying music production, audio engineering. I've recorded other people as well. I've listened to a lot of music. I've gone through like the last stages of puberty. I've moved out of my house, like because when I was producing Hive Mind, I was living with my mom and my brother, and like now I'm an adult. So that makes a lot of sense to me actually. That the styles would vary. And by the way, I've always seen that those 3 records as like a kind of logical progression. Like it feels like a little chicken growing up, you know.
Yeah.
Like Tea Room feels actually like a bigger, like way bigger version of Hive Mind to me.
Yeah, I can definitely see that, especially not just within like the production value of it, because Hive Mind has a few rough edges, and I believe you went back and like remastered it to give it a little bit of a polished. Yeah. But yeah, Tea Room definitely has a lot more maturity about it when comparing it to the first 2 albums. And you've done everything yourself, right? Like it was mainly just you in the studio. You didn't have anybody else helping you out with it?
No, I have my buddies play drums. I had 2 friends play drums on the album. There were 2 drummers, and I had people. Well, actually, for Tea Room, there was a lot of people. I had backing vocalists. I had my family singing with me. I had friends, my girlfriend. I had voice actors, drummers. I had my buddy Lucas coming for a guitar solo, and probably other people, man. I should have forgetting people there.
No, that's fine. Because I was wondering how you were able to orchestrate all that, being kind of like not only the main producer and the main like driving force behind that, but also the main like musician, and how you're able to kind of balance both roles at the same time.
Well, the truth is that I do everything in one move. Like, well, actually, for Tea Room and Petrica, there were demos before there was an actual album. But what I do is, once the demos are done, I just kind of keep refining what I had like built in my bedroom at first. So for Tea Room, I had the whole. Well, actually, I had. Actually, it was very. How would you say? It was a very messy process because I had the. Well, actually, I had the idea for the entire album laid out as drawings and sheet music before I did any of the demos. So up to that point, you say it was a very organized process. But then I did about half of the demos, and the rest I didn't have either the time or the energy to finish. So I just kind of sent what I had to my friends who came in and played drums, and they did like half the album over the demos, half the album over nothing but a click track and my explanations of my intent for it. And then I did some of the synth and the orchestration that I had done previously for the demos on it. Then I started mixing. Then once that mixing phase was over, I recorded the guitars. And like, I'm just kind of doing everything at the same time. Like whatever I feel like doing, I do it. If it's mixing now, so I'm going to start mixing. If it's singing now, I'm going to start singing over the mix. Like it's,
Right.
For me, it's just one. For me, it's just one process. It's just one thing that I do, which is music, and mixing is as much my tool as orchestration, as playing guitar, as singing, as so it's whatever comes next.
That's really interesting, and I like how it's a very visual album. So I like the fact that it almost started off as like a storyboard first.
Yeah, it did absolutely. And one thing that you said in your review of the album concerning the structures and how it didn't make sense for you how I divided the track in the album. Well, actually, I didn't divide the tracks. Actually, I wrote the songs as songs, and before any of the music was actually recorded or demoed. So I imagined Warlike as a two-piece, like a two-part song, one being kind of like the reflection of the other, like a darker first one, like an ascension, like a build up and then a conclusion, then a second one in another style. And like that idea was the core of the song. It was there before.
Okay. Yeah, I gotcha.
I had any of the material laid out. So that's why it's one song more like the idea for the song was.
Right. That makes a lot of sense how it's almost got this dual part to it. And as I mentioned in my review, it's a very cinematic experience. And that gives a really nice concept and I guess context to the actual tracks themselves in that sense then. Yeah, I have a few other questions. Let's see here. As we're both huge music lovers, I did want to kind of ask you what some of the biggest musical influences are. Because there are a few that I've picked up on listening to your 3 albums, but I would really love to hear some of your other musical influences.
Well, I have to give you a very different list for each album, and actually, I'm not even sure what the influences were for, let's say, Hive Mind, for example, which was such a long time ago. I believe video game music had a huge part to do on this one, as well for Petrica. Video game music was huge. For Tea Room, well, the thing is, when I was writing Petrica, rather, I was listening to a lot of what we would call the progressive metal stuff. So that would be Obed, that would be and Tesseract and those sorts of bands. But for Tea Room, I had stopped listening to that genre for about a year then. And actually now I only listen to those albums to sort of reminisce. And so that I imagine those artists have still had a massive influence on the sounds that I picked, as long as like the big distorted guitars and the drums and all these elements. But I wouldn't say they were the inspiration for the album. Rather, they were the background. They were like my culture. What inspired the album, actually, I wouldn't say it was music. Actually, it was more of my experience. To be blunt with you, actually, it was taking hallucinogenic drugs.
Okay. Yeah.
To be precise, yeah.
Right.
I had done quite a lot of those in the year that preceded my writing of Tea Room, and even whilst I was writing it.
Mm-hmm.
And the basis for a lot of those songs were intensely visual and narrative.
Mm-hmm.
So the album, I had, like, the way the album came to me was more like I imagine like a scene like being like really floral but heavy as well, like big blossom, you know. I had that
Mm-hmm.
sort of sense, and I had guitar loop in my mind that came with it and that I extrapolated. And then it goes into like a heavy Disney sort of catchy and sort of old school chorus, and then in the end it goes metal, and then the next is sort of like a dark ambient Hans Zimmer crust Polynesian drum sort of thing, and then it goes into Indian, and that's the way it developed in my mind. And then I just went and created the details whilst I was writing down. So and as far as the influences in music goes, Indian music was huge on me when I was writing the album, and I think that was the single biggest influence on what I thought was new and fresh. Then I wanted to go in the direction of also pop music a bit, and pop music and hip hop has taken even more space in my listening after the making of Two.
Yeah, yeah, and just you touched upon something that I think a lot of us with a huge background in progressive rock is feeling, in that some of those earlier bands, like you had mentioned Opeth and all of that, we had listened to quite a bit earlier, but now we kind of listen to more as like a reminiscing thing, and now we're looking for kind of like the next wave of like what's coming up next. And I do feel as though the Keor project is in amongst that, and yeah, because you have this new sound coming on that might be taking the foundation but building upon it. And I love what you were mentioning about specifically with Tea Room and utilizing a lot of the different like flavors, like the hip hop and pop, which is doing some really
and dance music is also big on Tea Room. There are lots of like industrial techno moments.
And I always thought, like, about 10 years ago, dubstep was really big, and I was excited to see some of those techniques being used in progressive rock, but we never really used them, even though I thought if we took those techniques and applied them to more of the like sophistication and musicianships that a progressive rock artist could utilize, I think we would have something extremely exciting.
I remember some years ago, Haken on the Affinity album, they had done like on their single, there was a bit that was a dubstep inspired. I can't remember the title of the song. Do you? It was the first single of the Affinity album.
Yeah, I want to say that was either the Cockroach King or the the Endless Knot, was it?
Oh, that was the Endless Knot. Exactly.
The Endless Knot, yeah. And I thought that they were using that perfectly, because that was what I was hoping for.
Yeah, it was
and I could
beautiful,
picture
but it was kind of a gimmick as well. Like it just came and went, you know?
Yeah, it felt more like a flash in a pan than anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's interesting what you're saying, man. For sure, these sounds are gonna have to find their way into our repertoire if the genre is to live on, because the Opeths and the Stephen Wilsons and even the Sugars and all, they've done like fantastic albums in the past, but it's not to say that they're old, like they're not old per se, but it's rare that a band will have 2 or 3 climaxes in their career, and I feel like these bands have already had that. Like they're not gonna peak again.
Exactly. I fully agree. Like, as much as I love Opeth and I love what they're doing right now, I think all they're going to continue to do is that refining this kind of acid rock from the 70s.
Yeah, it's kind of curating in a way. I feel like everything that came after Heritage is kind of curating their style.
Exactly. Yeah. And I love how like Stephen Wilson's doing this whole experimentation with more accessible, not necessarily poppy music, but more almost like Prince inspired or like things like that. So I think the real inventions and rejuvenizing of the genre is going to be coming from the next generation, and I'm really excited to see kind of what comes next.
Who are the other guys like our age, our generation that you feel have something really interesting going on?
Oh, that's a great. We've switched. Now you're asking the
Just
questions.
put the situation on you.
No,
Wasn't
that's
expecting
great.
that.
There was a band about 5 years ago from called Next to None that I thought was going to be something really, really special. They
Yeah,
were,
that rings a bell.
yeah, Mike Portnoy's son was the drummer in that band.
Right.
And they were more of like a progressive metal band, but some of the things that they were doing was like really, really outstanding. They only put out 2 albums. Another one that an artist by the name of Christian Brun was doing some fantastic, fantastic work with his Invention series. He did the Black Codex series.
Mm.
Um, Unfortunately, I feel like they never really got the notoriety that I was really, really hoping for. In terms of like the newer bands now that are maybe not necessarily our age, but just a little bit older. We're looking at like Leprous, which is they actually announced
Yeah.
today that they're putting out a new album this summer. Um, and the other ones that I'm really excited for to see more of, I was really excited about Sid Arthur, but they've kind of fallen off the face of the earth, unfortunately. They're an American band that were a little bit more on the indie style of music, like very independent. Um, but those are just some that I'm still on the lookout for and very excited to see if they have any other projects.
Yeah, I kind of fell off the underground wave of like digging for new bands and all. I've been listening to a lot of mainstream stuff lately.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I've been listening to a lot of Travis Scott, which I think is fascinating. A lot of stuff that he does. I don't know if you listen to any hip hop.
Not really. I'm like I know a little bit, but that's not really where I go to.
There's a
Yeah.
lot of like really psychedelic stuff going on the US hip hop scene, man, and
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really inspiring. Like they're doing like multiple uh, 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 beats in completely
Mm.
different atmospheres in one song, and all sorts of like effects that make you think like, what am I listening to? Like, is that a bass? Is that a voice? Is like
Hmm.
didgeridoo? Is that a drum or is that a punch? Like it's a lot of stuff that is really it's really fresh in the way they're working with the sounds. And I've been listening to a lot of that, and it's been
Mm-hmm.
inspiring me. Actually, I think the music that I'm going to be making next, I'm actually going to be working on finding new sounds
Mm.
before I start composing anything new. Because what I've done until now was, well, when I was composing the first albums, Hyvan and Petrica, I just loved rock music and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
progressive rock and some other stuff. And I wanted to make a rock song like just that could stand on its own. So I needed a drum. I didn't know how to play drum, even less how to record drums. So
Mm-hmm.
I got like an virtual drum software, and I just laid down my parts, and I was happy with it because it sounded like drums, kind of,
Mm-hmm.
and it did the job. And then I recorded the guitars and the bass, and it sounded like a rock song, and it was nice. And then so I started hearing the limitations of that, and that's why on Tea Room I had real drummers come in and play the drums.
Mm-hmm.
And now that's done, and I'm like, all right, that sounds like a well produced rock album with good sounding drums and good sounding guitars and good sounding vocals and all. So what's going to be my sound palette now
Mm-hmm.
that you feel like really sounds like me? So I'm thinking about going and sampling old records for drum
Mm.
sounds and starting working with electronic drums again, but stacks that I really built for myself and sounds that are original. As well for bass and for ambient stuff, I'm thinking about going and sampling movies and natural sounds and voices and my friends and places that I live nearby, and seeing if I like build a catalog of stuff that sounds good for me. If I find inspiration for new music that sounds fresh enough for me to want to write.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic. Yeah, because that was going to be the last question. So I'm glad that you were the one that brought it up. It was like, what's the next
No.
step? Like, where's the next Keor album going to be taking us? And
Yeah.
I love that idea of finding like almost finding music, like not just like creating your own music, but like finding it within your own nature. Like there's a band, Gazpacho does that a lot on their albums. They will like just bang rocks together to create some of their rhythm sections,
Mm.
to like find these natural sounding, like bass and drumming. So that's a really fun adventure. Um, that's great.
Well, and as
Yeah,
well, regarding the next step, I just got one more thing I think you'll find comforting
I would love it.
is
Yes.
that like the way I compose Tea Room, like the as I was explaining earlier, like the one hit vision, like I got everything. It has to be that way. Plus, I guess you picked that up from listening to the album. It had a lot of personal meaning and
Mhm.
stuff that I needed to prove for myself, like proving that I could be a certain kind of person, that I could produce a certain kind of record. I thought that was the best way possible to write an album
Mhm.
because it was just so crystal clear when it first appeared. And now that I went through the whole process of realizing that vision, I feel like there's no way to make a more chaotic album than that, and a more like soul crushing way to
Mhm.
make music than being so strict about like an ideal that I had at some point in my life that has long passed. So I was looking for that type of vision to start writing again, and
Mhm.
now it's becoming increasingly clear that I'm never going to be writing music like that again, and I'm actually going to start making songs that I like from the
Okay.
get-go, just
Right.
like I did in the beginning, like just piecing stuff together that sounds good, that sounds catchy, that sounds coherent, that sounds fresh,
Mhm.
and just making music for the sake of music.
Mhm.
That's the next step.
Oh, that's exciting because I love both styles, right? Like I've really grown to appreciate Tea Room and I really love that chaos that's found on there. But I'm
Cool.
also extremely excited to see where this next sound is coming from.
Hopefully,
So
less
yeah.
chaos.
Well, I'm always for chaos, but I also love a little bit of order every once in a while. So that's
Yeah,
a
me too.
yeah, that's great. Well, thank you for taking some time and chatting with me today. This
Thank
was
you,
a
man.
fantastic time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I urge everybody to check out Keor's albums. The first three were fantastic. I love Petrichor and I love Tea Room. And I mean, I love the Hive Mind as well. It's got some good stuff on it. And yeah, thanks for coming on and having a little chat today.
My pleasure, man.
All right, perfect. And everybody, thanks for tuning in today. And until next time, Victor and Notes out.